Turtles all the way down. I'm Jake, sometimes Cenk. Happy New Year. It's been a while. It's kind of been difficult for me to, I don't know, it's not motivation. It's just having the energy, the strength to come out and put out one of these episodes. It's been almost a month. It has been a month. And Happy New Year. Was it a Happy New Year? I'm going to be honest with you. It was difficult. It's been this past winter has been kind of difficult. On a personal level, there's been some challenges. Some people have died. Some people have failed to be born. There's all kinds of, things that are happening that are disruptive to a human system such as myself. And I feel like I'm coming back. And part of it is actually to put out this episode. So if you hear this, it means I was successful in actually doing it. So welcome back. Happy New Year. As I said, I wasn't really feeling that great and I wasn't really that energetic. So I found myself watching, TV, Netflix, movies, that kind of entertainment more often than I normally would. And I finally got around to seeing a few of these things that I wanted to see. There was this documentary on this AI called DeepMind, and it's game of Go versus the best human player. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this game Go. You probably know of chess, which is another game that's often, pointed to as something that, exhibits a great deal of intelligence to play and to win and to be a grandmaster at. Well, if you ask a lot of these people, they will tell you that there's another game called Go, which is more popular in the East. Whereas, if you're trying to figure the number of possible moves, for example, this is pointed to as a demonstration of the complexity of Go versus the complexity of chess. The number of possible moves in chess, I don't know what these numbers are, compared to the number of possible moves in Go are, they're astronomically different. And in fact, the number of moves in Go, or the positions on the board, or whatever it may be, is more than the number of atoms in the universe. And that is to indicate to us how incredibly complex it is. Of course it is, yes. And it's also interesting, this game, because, from what I've heard of it, they say that a lot of the best players are the ones that are considered to be, in some sense, less mechanical. They are seen to be more creative, more about an intuition of the positions on the board, and and doing better than the opponent to win position and real estate on a board, and to eventually win the game through a point system. So these researchers create this AI called DeepMind, and they teach it to play Go. And it actually teaches itself to get better at playing Go. And they decide to play this against the world's best Go player, which happened to be a person embodied in Lee Sodol. And it's kind of a fun documentary. It's on Netflix. I don't even know what the name of it is, but I'm sure you'll find it. And what's really kind of cool is the reaction of the people watching when DeepMind makes a move, and I think they call it was move 37, and everyone just kind of goes, "Oh, what happened there?" And it's the most fascinating part, because they're not sure if this AI is making a move that is stupid or so goddamn brilliant that nobody in the room is seeing it, or, what is this? They're kind of surprised by it. And it's interesting, and it becomes clear that this AI is, it's been told to win the game is to win the game by points. It's not interested in a lot of the other bandwidth that goes on between players. And when you see Lee Sodol playing this AI, and there's another human behind or across him to make the moves for the machine. And, this player has a habit of looking into the eyes of the player that is across the table from them. And from that, whether they realize it or not, even, call it subconsciously what you will, they are getting information. And that is allowing them to make the decisions that they do to make the best possible move. Now, this AI is giving up no such information to the best human player. And you can see how the man becomes really quite agitated, and it's a weird position to be in. I mean, if in fact he is one of these great players, as they say, who is relying more on creativity and intuition, he's going to be thrown off by this, isn't he? I mean, because all of those great talents that he excels at are not as useful when you're going up against, sheer thought, the abstract layers, the mind systems of an AI that has been designed and produced and taught and self-taught to basically function in one very specific sliver of a type of intelligence. And I don't think it's any surprise that, it won. It beat the best human. And, we've now gone past a situation where, a lot of these knowledgeable researchers would have told you we were probably about 10 years away from creating an AI that can do that. We now have that. But, in watching that documentary, I guess in some sense I'm not as worried about AIs. That move 37, I'm not convinced it was a creative move, whatever we call that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to... What does that even mean? What is that? I mean, humans do it all the time. We get this, somebody does some innovative thing, and everyone just kind of looks at him at first, shaking their heads and thinking, oh, is he just being stupid? He doesn't see what we see? And later it's discovered that maybe that person was actually seeing more than other people were seeing. And, for every one of those genius innovative moments, there's probably thousands of others that are convinced that they are such, and it turns out not to be. But these guys at DeepMind, I mean, it's pretty brilliant. I mean, they've created this AI that's gotten very close to that kind of, it's kind of that uncanny valley of intelligence where everyone just kind of stopped and went, that move 37, was kind of the talk of everybody watching it. And I'd like to see more from this AI. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the impending AIs that we're dealing with, yeah, we're still fucked, but I think there's more time. Sure, I mean, an AI has beaten a person 10 years ahead of schedule, but I don't think it's actually demonstrated any kind of self-awareness yet. But, we're getting ever closer to that, aren't we? And another thing, that AI has kind of an easier time, doesn't it? It's not thinking about the uncomfortableness of its seat and the pressure from millions of people watching, as they were live as this was happening, and this poor human, this mammal, who's representing all of humanity against, this is kind of the sports take on it, pitting man against machine. It's one of those, it could be, and I think it likely will be one of those historic events along a path, as we create these intelligences, whatever the hell they're going to be. There's going to be some intelligences that we're working on. But so far, the ones that we've developed don't really have this messy inside. We have a messy inside, and I can attest to that. As I was saying the last month or so, and as I said, there's lots of reasons, and as I've mentioned, and some of them even involve, maybe the lack of exercise, also coupled with the bad nutrition on top of all of these things that are happening as events in your life. You kind of go down into this downward spiral. It's still a positive feedback loop. It's a positive feedback loop because it's positively increasing that thing, which happens to be negative in some cases. And it snowballs and it gets out of hand. And before you know it, your system, this thing called me, is just clearly exhibiting behaviors that seem unhealthy. I mean, it's kind of, when you see one of your friends that you haven't maybe seen in a while, and they don't quite look right, you'll tell them. You'll say, "Oh, you look tired, or something's off." or if they're doing things that are harmful to themselves, you'll notice that. It's sometimes harder to notice it in yourself. Of course it is. You're too close to yourself. Of course you are. You can't be any closer to anybody else. And also, what part of you, is winning out at certain times. And so I'm glad that I was able to, step back a little bit recently and realize that I gotta remember to breathe. I keep saying this, keep saying it, but it's very simple, but it's kind of a practice that you have to do. Now, I found myself recently kind of, feeling these tight feelings of anxiety, and occasionally I would, close my eyes and kind of put my head down on the couch and breathe a little and think things through. And as soon as you start breathing a little deeper, wow, things slow down. And then you're able to think a little more clearly. And it's interesting what kind of insights you can get if you're paying attention to what's going on inside. And I don't know, there's all kinds of practices that you can engage in, mindfulness, meditation practices, what have you. And I think all of them are probably going to work. When I stop and listen in those moments of, stress and anxiety, I think what I hear is kind of like a screaming going on in the background. I don't know how you experience your inner reality, but mine is very sonic. I hear noises and sounds and musicality and things and voices. But in terms of musicality, I'm kind of making sense of things. And when I'm in kind of a high tension mode and my eyes are closed and gritting and I'm trying to, pull it all together, when I'm trying to pull it all together, I kind of hear kind of the screaming subsiding, this kind of high-pitched or low-pitched or all kinds of noise, let's call it, rather than signal. And it starts to quiet down. And once that quiets down, you can focus on other things better. Over the years, I kind of learned not to ignore my body, which I used to do when I was younger. Whenever my body would throw up these signals to me of pain and discomfort, I would push them aside. I would not listen. I would not respect them. So if I had this inner screaming, as I call it, going on, I would say, my system would basically push that aside and not take it as relevant information and try to move on. But what that does is it keeps spinning around inside you. If you're not dealing with things, if you're not looking at shit, it keeps spinning around. And sometimes it starts affecting other systems and other cycles. And, I don't know what the cause and effect of it is or what the chain of events, if there is such a thing, but there does seem to be a correlation between, certain types of thinking, certain abstract ways of being that ignoring that effect and find themselves impacted into the body in other ways, in the other body systems. The simple way of saying that is stress makes you sick. And that seems to be true. But I wonder if I went too far. The last year or so, I've basically, when the body screams, I listen to it like maybe I was listening to a toddler who is, causing a fuss and getting everything they wanted. I gotta admit, I've basically let myself have what I want, and I was not very restrictive, and that's good. I'm glad I went through that. It's kind of like that Dionysian wave, and but I'm starting to notice that the pendulum needs to swing back a little bit more, and I've probably been saying this a little bit more and more as maybe each of these podcast episodes go by. You might be noticing a pattern that I'm starting to wake up to, and that's always interesting. Sometimes you don't see what you're waking up to, and you don't see the patterns until you step back after the fact. And I'm starting to see that, I need to do less of certain things and more of others. And you got to kind of have the abstract side take charge. So that's what I'm doing. I'm stepping back, and I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm going to be going to Cuba soon. Actually, kind of like a beach vacation. Sit around, do nothing, maybe read, maybe think, maybe talk. I'm going to go with my girlfriend, and so I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of letting one side of me have a little bit more power, and I don't want to say trick my body, but take charge. And you got to do some work. I guess that's what they call the work. It's unless, of course, maybe you don't have to. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking for myself. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you are, I don't know, maybe you're a stable genius. Maybe you got a good brain. Maybe, like you're really smart and have the best words. But most of us, I think we got to pay attention and listen to our inner selves, but don't let, every screaming, yelling, toddler type extortion from the body get its way. But you got to listen. You got to talk to it. The sides have to communicate. A lot messier inside than inside an AI. So, you know what? I recorded a couple of minutes of from this documentary, and I think I'll make some music out of it right now. So listen now and talk soon. Tell your cool friends to listen.
getting real.
끊겼죠 설마.
Now the fight is getting real.
끊겼죠 설마.
Now the fight is getting real.
끊겼죠 설마. 끊겼죠 설마. 끊겼죠 설마.
Now the fight is getting real.
끊겼죠 설마.
Really complicated. Now the fight is getting really complicated. Now the fight is getting really complicated. Now the fight is getting real. Now the fight is getting real.
끊겼죠 설마.
Now the fight is getting real.
끊겼죠 설마.
Really complicated. Now the fight is getting really complicated. Now the fight is getting really complicated. Now the fight is getting real really complicated. Really complicated. Really complicated. Really complicated.
It's impossible. Tell me now. It's impossible. Tell me now. It's impossible. 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 It's impossible.